The NATO alliance accepts Joška's invitation to Tirana, a decision showing a strong message to the Western Balkans. The Democratic Party warns protests against Edi Rama's government if the majority does not accept the proposal for early elections with technical governments. Trudeau is committed to helping Albania as Canada attends a donor conference in Brussels regarding the reconstruction process after the earthquake on November 26th. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 14th of February, 2020. Good evening and thank you for tuning in to the English edition of Ora News. My name is Christopher, bringing you the only update of the local Albanian news translated into English. NATO is entrusting Albania to organize the defense ministerial, thus appreciating the role that our country plays in stabilizing the region. This will be the first time a defense ministry has been organized in the Western Balkans, as meetings have been held in Belgium for more than 10 years. The defense ministers of the NATO member states approved the meeting of the Atlantic Council in Brussels with a proposal of the defense minister Olta Jacka to be held in Tirana this June. The alliance's decision to meet in Albania is not only a maximum appreciation for the security that our country conveys as a worthy ally, but also a strong NATO message for its attention to the Western Balkans and the strong role Albania plays in the stability of the region. Said the minister at the conclusion of the ministerial defense held in Brussels on the 12th and 13th of February. But according to Minister Jacka, the important meeting that is expected to take place in June is at the same time our responsibility to be properly represented at the biggest event since our NATO membership 11 years ago. It is an undertaking that, in addition to coordination between all institutions, will also demonstrate our seriousness to be the center of defense and security in the world for 48 hours. At the meeting of the Atlantic Council, Minister Jacka thanked the allied countries that were close to the Albanian people in the early hours of November 26th, and all those who continue to assist us in the most important phase of reconstruction. During the Brussels ministerial, the defense minister met with U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper. For the United States of America, defense is the #1 priority, while the U.S. government and taxpayers are the main supporters of the Albanian armed forces. The Democratic Party warns protests against Edi Rama's government if the majority does not accept the proposal for early elections with technical governments. The warning came from the DP chairman after meeting with representatives of the Venice Commission. On the morning of working with representatives of Venice, the United Opposition has expressed concerns that beside the political crisis, the country has entered a deep constitutional crisis as well. Speaking to the media, DP leader Luzin Basha underlined that Edi Rama's government has seized political and judicial power and that the adoption of the law on the functioning of the Constitutional Court one day before the arrival of Venice clearly shows this. Luzin Basha mentioned that the meeting with the experts of the Venice Commission was very fruitful, as Albania is in a deep constitutional and political crisis. The best illustration of this crisis in recent weeks is the perverse movements of a government that does not even wait for the opinion of Venice, but has led to the adoption in an illegitimate assembly of other measures that strengthen the state capture, apprehension of justice, and the apprehension of the Constitutional Court. All this has led the country to total collapse. Citizens' rights, lives, property, and security are all threatened because the Albanian state, as the Republic of Albania today, is not Albanian, but is a handful of powerful criminals and oligarchs who together have seized elections, parliament, municipalities, the Constitutional Court, the country's courts, and Albanian property. Everything in this country is controlled by a handful of people. This is not a democracy. This is not the rule of law. So with the Venice Commission, we discussed not only the problems that have been compounded month by month and year after year since the beginning of the seizure of justice and the destruction of justice reform by a government that will protect and hide its crimes and corruption, but also the way out. The solution we are looking for, we are not seeking for ourselves. We sacrificed everything to pave the way for a political solution to the Albanians, not just for ourselves. Should the other party continue to illegally use unlawful power, use dirty money from organized crime, and place the interests of its own and those criminals and oligarchs against the interests of Albanians, the opposition together with the citizens will make their own decision to belong to a European society and face this handful of people who have taken the country hostage. Luzin Basha said after the meeting with the opposition, the Venice delegation also went to the office of the chairman of the KED, Ardian Dvorani, accused by the head of state of violating the Constitution. The fact-finding mission will come up with a final opinion on the appointment of the members of the Constitutional Court at the March 20th plenary session. Canada will attend a donor conference in Brussels to help Albania with the reconstruction process after the November 26th earthquake. The news was confirmed by the Canadian Prime Minister himself during a meeting with Albanian counterpart Edi Rama in Munich, who attended the security conference. The head of the Albanian government, Edi Rama, is using the meetings during the Munich Security Conference to seek the support of the participating states to assist our country in the reconstruction process. Edi Rama also received the confirmation of his Canadian counterpart for the participation of his country in the donor conference to be held in Brussels on Monday. I once again express my condolences for the terrible earthquake we talked about when we met in NATO. Canada has also committed to attend the reconstruction conference in February, Justin Trudeau said. Excited by Canada's presence at the reconstruction meeting, Edi Rama also forgot the protocol. You know you have a huge impact on many of your counterparts. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your standing by our Albanian flag. For SP MP Ervin Bushati, there are many convicted Albanians serving sentences in European prisons and possessing property in Albania. Speaking to the Economic Commission on the new property sequestration bill, he also said crime is generating $1.5 billion a year in Albania. There are many convicted of crimes across Europe today that have property registered in Albania. These properties must be distributed to the society, Ervin Bushati said. It doesn't help the economy. A criminal business that goes into construction or trade is hurting the economy and undermining the future of this country. There are measures that we have not invented. These are anti-mafia measures in other countries that have organized crime. Organized crime in Albania today is over $1.5 billion and has been operating for at least 10 years. Today it is extremely large. To deal with the details of the rights of those gentlemen who have been stabbed in the back is not right at the expense of the Albanian society. Bushati proposes that the seized apartments to be given to the homeless by the earthquake. According to the UN, organized crime in the world goes up to 10% of the GDP, and the trio normally goes up to $1.5 billion a year. What we're talking about is not something happening at the corner of the neighborhood, but a well-structured machinery with $1.5 billion per year of organized crime, managing property, and much more in Europe. These values are more than the damage of the earthquake itself. The logical deduction that there are thousands involved in crime management and property management. This should not be seen as expropriation nor nationalization, but as fair distribution by law. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Ora News, thank you and good night.